It's time to do business again. This time we have 25 minutes to give you updates from the world of business. And for this episode, here's what we have prepared for you. The price of rice has declined more than 12% in Nigeria. Are you feeling it? We'll talk about it on the program. And in Kenya, there are new tax requirements for the certificate. Once again, the Cedi stabilizes and to the celebration of Ghanaians. Welcome to the program. I'm Ini John Mekwa, and we start off from the global space. As usual, telling you that oil prices fell. Now it's gone down 2%, marking their third day of decline as investors assessing the effects of U.S. sanctions on Russia's two biggest oil companies, along with a potential OPEC Plus plan to raise output. Looking at the numbers, we see a 0.2% drop for Brent, bringing the price to $64.33 a barrel. For WTI, it's also down. It lost $1.20, that's about 2%, to $60.11. The softer prices come after Brent and WTI last week registered their biggest weekly gain since June, reacting to U.S. President Donald Trump's decision to impose Ukraine-related sanctions on Russia for the first time in his second term, targeting oil companies Lukoil and Rosneft. Following the U.S. sanctions, Russia's second-largest oil producer, that's Lukoil, they've said that they would sell international assets, and this is the most consequential action so far by a Russian company in the wake of Western sanctions over Russia's war in Ukraine, which started in February 2022. Meanwhile, Indian refiners have not placed new orders for Russian oil purchases since sanctions were imposed, and they are awaiting clarity from the government and suppliers, according to sources. And in the metal space, gold prices regained some lost ground today, rising above 4,000 per ounce level as a weaker dollar and expectations of further federal rate cuts outweighs pressure from signs of a thaw between U.S. and China. So we see that spot gold is up 0.7%. It's $4,009.39 per ounce after dropping more than 3% on Monday to its lowest level since October 10. See U.S. gold also, that as for December delivery, that has gained 0.1% to $4,022.10 per ounce. Trump said that he thought a deal would be reached with China and announced a flurry of deals on trade and critical minerals in Malaysia with 4 Southeast Asian nations during the first stop of his 5-day Asia trip. Meanwhile, the European Central Bank and the Bank of Japan are both broadly expected to hold rates steady later on this week. Gold prices have gained about 53% this year, reaching an all-time peak of $4,381.21 on October 20, and that was bolstered by geopolitical and economic uncertainties. There's also rate cut bets and sustained central bank buying. Elsewhere, we see silver up 0.3% to $46.74 per ounce. Platinum is down 1.2% to $1,571.85, and palladium dipped 0.8% to $1,391.15 per ounce. We come to here in Nigeria and tell you a bit about the corporate. We see Transnational Corporation, that's Transcorp, a leading listed conglomerate. They've released their third quarter earnings results for the period ended September 30. Let's look at some of the details for it. The highlight of it is that the revenue went up 39% to $413.4 billion naira, beg your pardon. And then profit before tax also went up 18%. It's 124.5 billion naira. Profit after tax shows a 20.4% increase year on year at 91.4 billion naira. And gross profit margin was up 48%. And that's for the third quarter of this year for Transcorp Group. Moving over to Kenya now, where the Kenya Revenue Authority, they've announced strengthened requirements for obtaining the tax compliance certificate. signaling a tighter noose on tax non-compliance and reinforcing its drive to enhance revenue collection in the country. According to KRA's public information, applicants for the TCC must now strictly satisfy three core conditions, and those before they can be given the certificate. And the conditions are all tax returns filed by their due date, all tax payments made by the due date, full clearance of any outstanding tax liabilities. The certificate, which validates that an individual or business is tax compliant, is required in a number of contexts, such as job applications, government tenders, liquor licenses, and business operations. For businesses and individuals, the strengthened TCC requirements mean that the window for error has narrowed. Entities that had in the past operated with outstanding tax filings or arrears may now find themselves unable to obtain the certificate in time for tenders, licenses, or employment prerequisites. And over to Cameroon, where, well, the presidential election has just ended and reactions are following that, both positive and negative. We see that the agricultural sector of that country has witnessed a marked improvement in the first quarter of 2025 as crude palm oil production registered a notable year-on-year increase. According to data released by local media and industry sources, production of crude palm oil in Cameroon rose significantly in the first quarter, reflecting stronger harvest, improved yield performance, and potentially favorable weather conditions. The government's focus on rejuvenating the palm oil sector, including incentives for smallholders and mechanization of processes, that has helped to stimulate outputs. And over in Ghana, where the Cedi has shown signs of resilience against major trading currencies and buoyed by a weakening US dollar and improved foreign exchange inflows. That's according to the Bank of Ghana. In its latest Monetary Policy Committee update, the central bank notes that the US dollar's decline on the global market has provided breathing space for emerging market currencies, including the Cedi, which had been under sustained pressure from imports demand and external debt obligations. The Cedi strengthened marginally against the US dollar in October, extending gains in the third quarter. The improvement was underpinned by higher receipts from gold and cocoa exports, as well as IMF disbursements and enhanced Bank of Ghana interventions in the intermarket. And now let's see what's happening to rice. Good news is a rare one when it comes to the price of commodities. But what financial derivatives company has found going to the market is that for the past 5 years during the festive season, rice prices have averaged around 60,000 for a 50 kg bag. However, for the first time, and now as we head to the festive season, there's been a significant decline of about 15.29%, with prices dropping from 85,000 to 72,000 in October 2025. Let's find out if this is still what we have at this time and if we can expect this to lead us into the festive season. We're doing this with Amira Yakubu, analyst with financial derivatives company. Hi Amira, welcome to the program. This is good news and it's rare when we talk about the price of commodities. I wonder if you see, that's FDC now, if FDC sees this as being sustainable at least into the festive season.
Okay, thank you for having me, Amy. Okay, so the reduction in prices of rice is largely driven by the surge in imports through the land borders. So this has led to a growth which has flooded the Nigerian markets, especially in Lagos. So we know that there has been government restrictions on some rice imports. However, there has been a temporary duty imposed on some certain essential food items, such that rice is still part of them. So this, in combination of our local supply, has increased the supply of rice in the market. So we've seen that this sudden influx has led to a reduction in prices in certain markets such as Mile 12, Oyibo, and Oshodi. So as we are close to the festive season. So we expect rice prices to just be on the downward trajectory, and people will start buying more rice to keep prior to when the season approaches.
So, from what you're saying now, we can expect, of course, is normal reaction that people want to stock up. That means there may not be so much purchases in the festive season because if the prices decline now, then we can expect more purchases now, which will lead to higher price because when demand increases, then price also follows suit.
Okay, the thing is, yes, like that's the whole mindset that once people stock or once people hoard now, prices to increase soon. But then we should have in mind that food inflation declined in the month of September to 16.87%. That price already consumes a significant portion of an average Nigerian food basket. Certain manufacturers are doing a lot in that aspect to reduce prices, and also the government in its National Rice Development Strategy 2 plan, they're already putting things to cater for provision of those lower reduction in prices of rice. So we still expect in the near term for prices to of rice to still be on a downward trajectory. Look at Bar Foods. They just recently imported some rice and maize into the country. So this is to reduce that hoarding effect that people already assume that once people hoard a lot, there'll be an increase in the prices of rice.
But Amira, we know and while we celebrate the drop in inflation, we know that the price of petrol has increased in the last 2 weeks. And this will feed into the price of commodities because transportation, mostly commercial transportation, especially for the regular Nigerian, depends on petrol. So don't you think that perhaps that will also reflect in the price of rice, which is a staple and a regular for a lot of Nigerians?
Okay, so ideally, the prices of petrol increase should affect like the prices of rice. But this decline in price of rice just happened of recent. And I will state that from such that when we look at food inflation, we look at okay, rice consumes a significant portion of an average Nigerian food basket. There are other factors beyond petrol that also should affect the prices of rice. So I'm saying that yes, petrol prices will increase the price of rice, but then there has been a lot, like the influx in the imports of rice this period was really much significant, which is dropping the prices of rice. Look at the drop, like 15.29% is not just a little drop in price of rice prices. So we should see that like even though there is an effect in petrol prices, it wouldn't be as significant as it should be, considering the amount of drop we just recently had in rice prices.
All right, Amira, let's hope that's correct and we would see sustained reduction in the price of rice. Thank you, Amira Yakubu, analyst with Financial Derivatives Company.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Let's go to the other type of markets now, the money markets, starting from stocks where we see for Nigeria, there's been a slight recovery from that negative close of yesterday and early trade today, which was in the red. So we see a recovery of 0.04% and still holding on to 155,000 level. For Johannesburg, it's also positive 0.47% at 109,223.30. For Egypt, it's positive 0.40%, and Kenya closed yesterday in the positive also 0.70%. That's for Nairobi Stock Exchange. Interesting how they have moved to the 180,000 level, building on that and coming up at 181. Moving over to the Middle East, and we see it's also mostly positive at intraday, starting from Dubai, which is green 0.18% at 6,051.74. Abu Dhabi is the only red in that region, the major markets right there. Saudi Arabia is positive 0.32%, as well as Qatar. Qatar is 0.28% in the green at 10,926.34. Let's move to the United States. right there and see the colors are green. A lot of optimism around the markets there. Stock features moving following the big rally to start the week. Earnings a major potential, major drivers of it, especially tech earnings, and then of course the expectation of a rate cut that always excites a lot of investors, and potential China trade deal. We know that President Trump is in Asia now making deals, especially for rare earth and all of that, and perhaps peace is coming the way of US and China coming to that relationship. So we see the Dow really positive, 0.71. S&P is also positive, more than 1%, as well as Nasdaq. Yeah, that's those earnings, those tech earnings we see driving sentiments right there, almost 2%. And investors during Monday's session, they cheered cooling tensions between US and China ahead of a highly anticipated meeting between the two presidents that's supposed to happen on Thursday, and both nations, they've agreed on a framework for potential trade deal which addresses China's rare earth minerals restrictions, soybeans purchases, as well as TikTok. Those are on the table during that conversation on Thursday, and we do hope that it comes out with some positive news. Moving over to Asia, their close of trade. We see the Nikkei in the red, the Kospi of South Korea in the red, the Hang Seng also in the red. Looking at other markets on the region there, see what the colors are, all red at the close of trade in Asia. So we know that President Trump was very happy meeting with the Japan Prime Minister, and they have some ongoing talks right there, and we also have some promises coming from there, and other Asia Pacific market were mixed despite gains on Wall Street. So sometimes it does seem the detachment between Asia and the US markets, which is not very usual, but we see that in this case. Let's stay with the market now, but head to Europe and see what Lars can tell us that's going on in Europe. Hi, Lars. Good afternoon. So, what are investors doing? What's the color of your market now?
That is so hard to say right now, Ini. Good afternoon, because every minute I'm looking at the markets here. It's either green or red because we are
gray, Lars.
flat.
Lars, we can also have gray color. If it's hard to say, let's just have a gray one.
we do have a lot of gray. If you look right behind me, the sky is gray and the market doesn't know what to do. We are moving sideways entirely. You know, Ini, it's a waiting game. This week will bring interest rate decisions by the US Fed as well as the European Central Bank. So there's more numbers to come, although from the corporate community, but we've seen in the past days that they are not really moving the market either. We almost don't know what to do, but then there's one important number out, a number on exports. German exporters are worried about their business, metal, chemicals, pharmaceuticals, all those export-heavy sectors are expecting lower numbers for next year, and that doesn't bode well for the German economy in general. And with this being the latest numbers that we got today, actually trading flat, I guess, is not even that bad.
Yeah, so we know that everyone is waiting for President Trump and President Xi Jinping, but I mean, I think a third way is countries are also looking for their independence when it comes to all of this. Europe, have they shared their plans yet to kind of cut some of these strings of dependence?
Yes, indeed, Ini. I mean, the latest program Brussels has come out with is called Resource EU. And, the 27-nation bloc wants to be more independent as well, of course, with regards especially to critical resources. Then again, independent is a big word. Let's say the EU wants to be less dependent on China, because that's really what this is about. And it's really all the EU can actually achieve. After all, with regards to many crucial resources, they are simply not available within the EU. So total independence is not attainable at all. But instead of almost exclusively working with China, as the EU has long done, the bloc is eager to strengthen its partnerships with Australia, Canada, Chile, Greenland, and then there's Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and Ukraine as well. Apparently, according to EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, they are focusing on everything from investment in mines and gaining these resources to investment in in the value chain and building up refining capacities here in the European Union.
Sounds like a huge investment in capital and time will be needed for this.
Well, yeah, it's definitely going to take a while to do, but at least they're starting, and you can directly link this effort now to the current global trade troubles. And while they might have started in the United States with President Donald Trump, of course, starting an all-out trade war with large parts of the world, levying tariffs and banning certain imports and exports, the EU in this case has a reaction to China's reaction to Trump's action. And I know, Ini, this sounds a bit more complicated, but it's actually not. It's just that simple. The US has been targeting Beijing with its trade war, banning exports of certain products to China. China has then retaliated with, for example, banning the export of rare earth elements, but not only to the US, but also to the EU. And suddenly both the US and the EU are finding themselves on the receiving end of this battle. And the EU has realized that such a dependence on China for materials that our economy desperately needs and has no alternative for, that is not a good thing. So instead of banking too much on one supplier like China, they're now just broadening their base, hopefully preventing supply shortages in future.
Yeah, well, you guys can come to Africa. We have a lot of all of those resources, Laz. Thank you so much, and do have a best of the rest of your day.
Thank you, and you too, Ini.
Okay, Africa has a lot. I mean, perhaps distance, and have we added value enough to our rare earth and other resources? So perhaps that's what's stopping the trade, but we can do it. Now, let's see what's happening in the crypto space, and we see it's higher. Okay, yesterday we had 115,000. So today it's 114,000, but 0.45%. We've seen worse numbers than that. Ethereum is still holding strongly to that 4,000 level right there, but we have more of red today. And the stories making the headlines is starting from Japan, where Bitcoin investment firm MetaPlanet, they've announced a large-scale $500 million share buyback program aimed at maximizing its Bitcoin-based returns. That's happening in China. And then a prominent crypto pundit has revealed a 250,000 investment in XRP. So that's a market driver right there. Signals renewed confidence in the digital asset amid growing market optimism. And then also another story is IBM. IBM is launching digital asset haven for institutional crypto adoption. That's International Business Machines Corporation. They unveiled that. It's a new platform built to help US businesses and government entities to integrate crypto custody and payment services into their existing financial systems. Let's talk about this and a whole lot more with Chuta Chimeze. Chuta Chimeze is the chairman, National Blockchain Implementation Steering Committee. NICTA. Hi, Chuta. Good afternoon. Welcome to the program.
Yeah, good afternoon. Always a pleasure to join you, ma'am.
Same to have you. So, I mean, a lot of conversations going on here, especially about stable coins, adoption, and all of that. Even here in Nigeria, we've had lawmakers talk one way or the other, positive or negative, the regulators and all of that. Would you say that confidence in adoption of Bitcoin, especially stable coin, is it obviously growing in Nigeria and on the continent?
Yeah, absolutely. Where we are today is very, very far away from where we were like in 2017 or 2016, when there was no formal regulation or policy for that matter. But today we have a lot of regulatory instruments in place. We have policies in place, and we have legislators talking. Recently, the Financial Action Task Force removed Nigeria from the grey list, which is one of the most significant bullish news to come out of Nigeria in the last couple of years, because that is one significant step that will elevate Nigeria, especially the Nigerian crypto market cap, from maybe where it is. I mean, yesterday or a few days ago, the Security and Exchange Commission DG said that Nigerians transacted to a total volume of about $50 billion in the last 1 year. I mean, that is significantly small considering that most of the market is not even captured because they are being carried out in P2P platforms, WhatsApp and Telegram groups. So what we are going to see in the next couple of years, I mean, it's going to be mind-blowing because now that Nigeria is off that gray list, we shall begin to expect the institutional investors to begin to railroad into crypto in a way of that diversifying their investments. We're already seeing that the retail is maximally utilizing the market, even though only 4% of Nigerians are getting involved in the direct financial market, in maybe stock and in the capital market. But those things will change because now confidence is gradually returning because the regulators are doing their job and we are seeing the impact that the current effort by legislators to legislate crypto will also contribute to make the industry stronger.
All right, we hope to see a stronger industry there. Chita Chimize, Chairman, National Blockchain Implementation Steering Committee. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it on the program. Thank you so much for being a part of Business Incorporated. I'll see you tonight for the news at 10, during the news at 10.